brought to you by Blackmagic Design, the world's highest quality products for the feature film, post and broadcast industries. Blackmagicdesign.com. And by the Tonkawa Film Festival, celebrating short films from around the world. TonkawaFilmFestival.com.
Hello and welcome to No Rest for the Weekend. I'm Jason Godbey, and today on the program, we've got even more movies from this year's Tribeca Festival. Joining me now via Zoom, you know him, you love him, you've seen his work on sites like Ain't It Cool and Cinema Scholars. It's Eric McClanahan.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. We did a lot this year at Tribeca. You had a good Tribeca, and we've already posted, for those of you who are just podcast listeners and you want to see some stuff early, on the YouTube channel right now, we have a couple of interviews that Eric did, a few interviews actually, including the one with Hugo Ruiz, who made Dante, which we'll talk about later, and the director of Death Boom, Jessica Chandler. That's also on the site. We're going to talk about that movie later. But first, we got a pleasant comedy, which stars Brian Darcy James, who you also interviewed. You can check that out as well. Finnegan's Foursome. This comedy sees two Irish-American brothers and their children, all highly competitive golfers, returning to their ancestral homeland to hit links in honor of their late father who taught them the game. Now, you were at the red carpet for this. You got some great interviews there, but you actually got the chance to see the movie.
Yes, this is one that I was actually looking forward to. You know, every year we look over the hundreds of movies that are at Tribeca, and sometimes you pick up on a plot point or you pick up on a name. And for me, the name on this one was Ed Burns. Written and directed by Ed Burns. I've been a fan of his for years. So, being a young Irish boy myself, I was very excited to see this one. And so I was able to watch it, and I will say the titular foursome refers to golf. So if you're looking for a blue film, it's not that. And if you don't like golf, it can get a bit tiresome because it is an over 2-hour movie with a lot of golf in it. Now, obviously, it's not about golf. It's never about golf. It's about family. It's about people who are competitive but who love one another, learning more about the game and about each other and about themselves. What I like about Ed Burns films, especially the last couple that I've seen, is if there's a character that has to be something of a villain or just a character that you need to dislike a little bit, Ed will play it himself. He won't give that part to a beloved actor and have them struggle with it. He'll be like, if it's gonna be a butthole, I'll do it. And he does. He plays like the worst of them over the course of, you know, the games that they're playing in Ireland. And, you know, his competitiveness comes out very ugly. Brian Darcy James plays his brother, and this is the 5th film that he's done with Ed Burns since they've been working together. And he brings such a warmth to his character. You know, he's revered for his stage work. And this being an Irish film, there's a good deal of drinking. There's a good deal of singing. I enjoyed the film. Not for the golf, for the film. You know, Ed Burns crafts good dialogue. He creates good situations where people can be vulnerable with one another. And I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's a great film.
They go to Ireland because the grandfather has died. So that film deals with death. And now this next film also deals with death, but in a very different way.
Let's just Tribeca.
Death Boom. Great title. This talks about the baby boomers, and 80 years ago there's a huge uptick in birth after the war, and that was called the baby boom. So we still have the baby boomers or the boomers around today. But now tens of millions of those people are dying, and this is a documentary that deals with the funeral industry and how they're dealing with this uptick. So just a honey of a subject matter. And now I thought it was curious that so Eli Roth is a producer on this. So
And the
he's
narrator, yes.
and he's a big horror movie guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to like, did they? Is there some horror in this too? Like, do they ever like lean into that kind of like in terms of the tone?
Yes. So it begins with a very salient point. It says, "Hey, remember just a couple years ago when we had the pandemic, and 300,000 people died at once, and the funerary structure was overwrought, and you saw stories about bodies in trucks and mass graves by the side of the road. That's going to happen again real soon in the millions." And so they lay out that groundwork, and then the next thing you hear is Eli Roth say, "So you've died." And then they show a super smash cut of people dying. Some of it from film, some of it from like traffic footage. So they do appeal to horror fans, or people who are more comfortable with the macabre, because this is a very macabre subject, and not a lot of people are comfortable talking about this, and that's why they made the film. I will say, watching the film, Eli Roth is he's narrating it, but he's also present in some of the situations. Like the first person they see is an embalming specialist, and so he and Jessica Chandler walk into the room. He has such a warm presence. Like, I want to see Eli Roth in a romantic comedy. I think he can carry it. Like, he's a really warm guy. Moving on. So the film says, hey, the traditional structures of like a traditional burial with the cement lined grave and the ornate box and cremation aren't working. They're wasteful. They're bad for the environment, and we're running out of space. So they start talking about other methods of disposal, things I didn't know about until I watched this documentary. Did you know you can be liquefied? It is called resumation or alkaline hydrolysis. You can be liquefied. You can be composted. One of my personal favorites in the film, and they mention it because it is legitimate, then they make fun of it and they move on. It's called extreme embalming, and it is essentially human taxidermy. You can get yourself embalmed and then placed in a position doing something you loved in life where you will spend quite a long time of your afterlife. Like on a motorcycle, jumping over a bus, decked out in leather, holding a guitar. It's a real thing. Some people do. I don't suggest it. But the question that I asked Jessica, who is also a horror filmmaker, that I didn't get the answer I was looking for, was I asked, is there anything you guys saw while making this film that would inform the decisions you make as a horror filmmaker? What I meant was they saw a lot of bodies. They saw bodies that ended up as cadavers due to something that ended their lives. Did they see something there that they're like, oh, no, you can go that way? Or did they see something in some of the decomposition processes that they were like, that's a way to break down a body. I should do it on screen. Because they talk about body farms where you literally, you donate your body and they throw it out on the ground, and scientists study how it decomposes. They study what animals come and pick at it. They study what it does to the environment around it. Like, you can donate your body to just lay out there and go the old-fashioned way. So it's not for the faint of heart, and when I asked, who is this film for? She's like, everyone, we're all gonna do that. So it does bring to light some more green alternatives that are more affordable and better for the environment and a little less selfish in the sense of, we take up so much space when we're living. Why do we need to take up so much space when we're gone? And it does point out some things that you might not think about. And it also talks about some of the legislation and some of the people behind the legislation that are stopping these green alternatives from being more ubiquitous. There's a reason we haven't heard about these things, and it starts with the Catholic Church. So it's a well-done documentary. It wasn't exactly what I expected. I thought they were going to talk more about, you know, the actual death boom, but really what they're taking the opportunity to discuss is what you can do and we can do to mitigate.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Wow. It doesn't sound like my cup of tea per se. It's although, I think it's great somebody made this movie because it's something that is a real thing that we have to deal with. Now, this other film, I think this next one, also I believe deals with some death aspects. And you interviewed the director, Hugo Ruiz. The film is in Espanol. It's called Dante. This is about a young paramedic who unwittingly finds himself in the middle of a war between crime lords. It also is a bit of a sort of an allegory or like a retelling of Dante's Inferno.
Dante Alighieri's The Divine Comedy is one of those things that everyone has a passing awareness of, like the Pavlovian dog experiment. You can say Dante, and I mean you go, oh, a level of hell, but it was a trilogy. There's hell, there's purgatory, there's paradise, and this film uses the loose interpretation of those three levels to sort of shine a light on Spanish nightlife in Madrid. And it starts with a guy driving recklessly with the MacGuffin. And he's looking at the MacGuffin, and the MacGuffin is shining in his face. And then he wrecks his car to throw people off the scent and kind of messes himself up pretty good. So he calls a paramedic. And that's when we meet Eduardo. And Eduardo is our guide through this nefarious underworld. Basically, he tries to help as many people as he can, while the people around him try to off each other as often as they can. And Hugo Ruiz said, when we were talking about it, I said, I said, what is this about? And he's like, it's about the nightlife. It's about the night in Spain. He said, when it's dark, people believe that they are hidden and that they can do things they wouldn't do in the bright of day. And I was like, wow, that's deep. And again, very warm person. I sat right next to him. We were chatting. His son is in the film. There's a character named Junior who is the son of one of the principals of the film, and he's terrifying. He's so he's a young man with a thin mustache and a huge chip on his shoulder, and he just smolders the entire time he's on scene. You're like, that's a dangerous fellow. He's like, that's my son. He's the nicest guy ever. I'm like, that is crazy. But it's a great film. Esther, the main actress, carries the movie. Like Eduardo, obviously, he's great too. But Esther, she's dynamite. She plays Mac, and she is of this dark world, but not. I'd say from, but not of. She's from this dark world, but not of. There is a light in her that she sort of feels welling up spending time with Eduardo. She realizes it doesn't have to be all these terrible things. There's something inside her that is genuine, that is authentic, that she can connect with if she weren't burdened by all this darkness around her. It culminates in a meeting with a big bad in a beautiful location. It's a little cliche, but that's what we go to the films for. And Ruiz said he wears his influences on his sleeve. So Scorsese, a lot of Tarantino. This is a great film to learn Spanish profanities if you wanted to do that. But a lot of fun, and apparently part of a trilogy, and this is the second one. So we're going to see more from him. He was awarded a couple years back when he came to Tribeca with his first film, Una Noche con Adele. So they like him, and for good reason. And I think we'll see him again soon. And I really had a pleasure talking to him. And this movie is a lot of fun. If you like gritty noir, like modern noir, international features, this one's for you.
The interview is on YouTube, so if you guys want to watch that, it's on youtube.com/getbehindtherabbit with all of our other Tribeca coverage. All right, so this next one, we actually both saw, and I interviewed the director of this one. It's called Humpty Dumpty X. 23 years in the making, Tony Kaye's deeply personal documentary returns to the era of American History X through his own footage, phone calls, confessions, creative rants as a singular artist of one of Hollywood's most legendary chapters. Now, this was interesting to me. We were in sort of mid-festival. I got an email from the publicist for this film, and I think I had just seen the thumbnail on the website, and I was like, "Is that Marlon Brando?" And we were doing so many other things, but then she sent me the description. I was like, "Oh, this is the American History X guy," and I remember there was a big controversy when that movie was coming out. There was a lot of stuff going back and forth in the trades. Was the movie going to come out? Was it not going to come out? We find out through the film that he had actually gotten it pulled or tried to get it pulled from its premiere screening at Toronto. Just all sorts of madness. And this movie tells the story of the madness from the point of view of the director. And it's a very personal first-person account of it. I asked him at one point, because he goes into meetings with a camera. And I said at one point, I was like, did you use this kind of as a weapon? Was this kind of hey, people, because people are not the same on camera as they are, when they're not on camera. And I thought he was kind of using this to his advantage. And he said, I was going to use anything I could. I was going to use theatricality. I was going to use the camera. And at one point, he went into a meeting with a monk, a priest, and a rabbi. It's I was going to use spirituality, and I was like, it's a shame you didn't film that. He's like, oh, they wouldn't let me. It's a really interesting film. Marlon Brando is in the movie, and at one point, he's talking to Marlon Brando, and he's got these little cameras, and he's filming Brando, and Brando is filming him. At this point, he has gone so off the rails that Brando becomes the voice of reason. Which, how many people can say that? I was really on the ledge, and then Marlon Brando came in and talked some sense to me, especially in the movie business. But it's
right. Thank goodness I had a steady hand like Marlon Brando.
Yes, you need someone, and because Brando's, he's like, man, didn't you read the contract? Do you have Final Cut? This is a business. It was just, I thought it was a really interesting first-person account of the issues that he had going back and forth with the studio, trying to sort of hold on to his vision. And I think at some point, he knows he's being irrational, and he goes back and in the newer footage because you have archival footage and then you have newer footage where he goes back and talks to some of these people, the people that he was arguing with, and they're fine. Everybody's because these guys have all made movies and they know how crazy making movies is. But you go to the point, because I even said to him, I was like, where were your people, man? Normally in this situations, you have a lawyer, you have an agent, a manager, and he just seemed to just have himself and a monk, a priest, a rabbi, apparently. So I was just like, this guy is bizarre. I have to talk to him. So I did the interview. We put up, the interview is on YouTube. There's a short 11, 12-minute clip, and then we did a full episode with him. So I talked to him for a half an hour. Fascinating. The whole thing is fascinating. What did you think of the film?
So I got some more background watching the film that I didn't know before. Obviously, I've seen American History X, and obviously the film did incredibly well. I think that's why, now when he talks to people about, everything, all the arguments, they're like, water under the bridge, we all made money. But, I didn't know his background as a commercial director, the most awarded commercial director in Britain at the time. And, he jumped the pond to make his big Hollywood debut, and he got attached to this film. And it never fully elucidated, at least for me, what his vision was I mean, it talked a little bit about the opening. You know, he actually did just explain, here's how the opening was going to look. And as I was listening to it, I was like, no, that's not fetching. But it is about obsession. It is about chasing perfection to the point of detriment. It is hard to watch him rail so hard against an institution that I'm not going to say has his best interests at heart, but at least doesn't see his vision and is offering salient alternatives.
The biggest part of it is like he never really, I think his biggest conflict is he never really articulates well what he wants. And
Right.
they're just trying to get him to be like, well, what do you want? Like, we know what you don't want, but what is your vision for this thing? And he can't quite get it out.
Yeah, what they kept saying through the film was, he asked for more time, so we gave him more time. And then when we asked how he was doing with that time, he said, I need more time. But he never had an end date. He never had, exactly. He didn't say what he was trying to accomplish. Now, his account, he lets us know some of what was going on in the editing room, some of the people that were allowed in the editing room. And one of those names was Ed Norton. And as we know, now, Ed Norton does have very strong opinions about how his films should look and feel. And so he can be a very big voice in the editing room. And I know that was a point of contention for him. And when he brought it up to other people who worked on his side of the industry, they're like, an actor? No. So there is some sympathy for him, but he seems to squander most of the sympathy he gets by just holding on to these sticking points. And then finally he's like, look, I don't want my name on the film. They said, we need a name on the film. And that's when he comes up with Humpty Dumpty. And that's where the film gets its title, Humpty Dumpty X. But yeah, it was to hear Marlon Brando break it down and say it's show business. If you get into this to make art, you're in it for the wrong reasons. And then the guilds upon guilds upon guilds, like it's a light into a world that not many of us will ever see. And so I thought it was really cool for that. Historically, it's so little about the movie, and it's more about Tony Kaye, and his singular but obtuse vision. So if you're thinking you're going to get a great behind the scenes of American History X and interviews with Norton and Furlong and D'Angelo, no, that's not what this is. This is something completely different, but still very riveting.
And I asked him about just the intimidation factor of being like, you're this guy from commercials, it's your first feature film, you got a movie star, you're dealing with a big studio. And he's like, yeah, that's exactly it. I think it's like a lot of his sort of overcompensating for feeling so intimidated by this process because, like you said, who sees this stuff?
Because it's his film telling his story, he gets to do it the way he wants. So it's framed as a tone poem. He's got his guitar, he's singing his adventures like he's his own bard. He's like, and then the great Sir Robin went to Hollywood, and he's you find out that he's done a lot of music stuff. He's worked with Rick Rubin and Red Hot Chili Peppers and Johnny Cash, and he's this musical soul. And so he sort of like retreats to his first love and treats it as a one big long song, like the Ballad of Robin Hood, and it helps him lionize himself as the hero of this story. So framing it that way, I thought was really smart, and really and catches you. It's very it was a good narrative device.
If you're a film festival aficionado, look for it at a festival near you, and then hopefully maybe in a year or so it'll come out so you can revisit this review then. All right, so I'm going to wrap up. Thanks so much for being boots on the ground for us at Tribeca and reviewing these films. For people who want to find you, where can they find you?
Well, as you said, I am at Ain't It Cool News, also Cinema Scholars. I've been doing some more book reviews for Nerd Initiative, and I did get my own website, McClanahan.com, up and running. However, I am far too busy to actually post anything on it. But keep an eye on there. There may be something new one of these days.
All right, and we've also got you also got the YouTube channel.
Yes.
Where you've been posting a lot of shorts, these daily shorts with movie observations.
Yes, look me up, Eric McClanahan, on YouTube. The actual channel is Eric McClanahan, like 9317 or something like that. But I've been posting a video every day, a short, where I observe or just recall a different film and what I'm thinking about it that day. And yeah, today's going to be 176. I'll be posting after this. So it's a fun little series, so follow along.
Right. You can also find that on Eric's Instagram channel. All right. So that's all we got for you today. Thanks so much for taking this trip down the rabbit hole once again. For more content, if you like to read reviews, you can find that on the website, No Rest for the Weekend podcast.com. You can also subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget YouTube, youtube.com/getbehindtherabbit. That's where you're going to find a lot of these videos first. All right, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Blackmagic Design and the Tonkawa Film Festival. For Eric McClanahan and the BTRP Media Network, I'm Jason Godbey. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
This is the BTRP Media Network.